before I sent it, I spent 2 years swallowing humiliation, fear, and silence. I worked at a mid-sized tech company that liked to call itself a family. That word should have warned me. My boss, Richard Hale, was the kind of man who smiled in meetings and crushed people privately. Tall, confident, always praised by upper management. On paper, he was a leader. Behind closed doors, he was something else. On my first week, he shook my hand and said, "Stick close to me and you'll go far here." I believed him. At first, the job felt normal. Long hours, tight deadlines, office politics. I kept my head down, worked hard, stayed late when asked. Richard noticed quickly. He started calling me into his office more than others, praising my work, giving me extra responsibilities. "You're sharp," he told me once. "Don't waste that." I took it as encouragement. I didn't realize I was being trained to become his shield. Things changed slowly. Almost quietly. It started with credit. Projects I worked on suddenly became his in meetings. My name disappeared from presentations. When I brought it up gently, he laughed. "That's how leadership works," he said. "Relax. You'll benefit later." Then came the pressure. He'd assign impossible deadlines and blame me when they weren't met. He'd send passive-aggressive emails at 2 a.m. and ask why I hadn't replied by morning. "You want to succeed, right?" He'd say. "Then act like it." I told myself this was normal. That all bosses were tough. That I just needed to endure. The first time he humiliated me publicly, I still defended him in my head. We were in a team meeting when a system error came up. One I had warned him about weeks earlier. Richard leaned back in his chair, looked straight at me, and said, "This is what happens when people aren't smart enough to follow simple instructions." Everyone turned to look at me. I felt heat rush to my face. My mouth opened, then closed. I wanted to explain. I wanted to say the truth. But something in his eyes warned me not to. After the meeting, he pulled me aside. "You embarrassed me," he said calmly. "I tried to warn you." He cut me off. "Never contradict me in front of others. Ever. If you can't handle that, you don't belong here." That night, I didn't sleep, but I stayed. Weeks turned into months. His behavior grew sharper. Meaner. He'd make jokes about my salary, my background, my lack of confidence. Always just enough that HR couldn't touch it. Always with witnesses who'd look away. One afternoon, I overheard him on the phone in his office. His door was slightly open. "Don't worry," he said quietly. "He'll take the fall if this leaks. He always does." My stomach dropped. I realized then what I was to him, disposable. Around that time, I noticed something else. Richard was unusually careful with certain emails. He'd call me into his office to talk through things instead of putting them in writing. He used his personal phone a lot. And sometimes, when he thought no one was around, he'd lock his screen the second someone walked by. Something wasn't right. I started paying attention, not because I wanted revenge, because I felt unsafe. If you find this story good, please like and subscribe our channel. It's free for you but helps us a lot to keep sharing real stories like this. One evening, while helping him prepare a report, he accidentally forwarded me an email chain that wasn't meant for me. He realized it seconds later and asked me to delete it. "Didn't read it, right?" he asked, smiling. I lied. "Of course not." But I had, and what I saw changed everything. It wasn't illegal. Not yet. But it was dirty. Internal manipulation. Vendor kickbacks hidden as consulting fees. Pressure on junior staff to alter numbers so quarterly reports looked stronger, and his name was all over it. I sat there that night staring at my laptop. Heart pounding, knowing something I wasn't supposed to know. I told myself to forget it. To stay quiet. To protect my job. So I did, for a while, but once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. More emails followed. More whispers. I noticed how people who questioned him suddenly got written up. How complaints vanished. How HR always sided with him. One coworker, Maria, was fired after refusing to adjust data he'd asked her to clean up. Richard told everyone she was unreliable. She cried while packing her desk. That could be me. I thought, that would be me. The breaking point came on a Friday afternoon. Richard called me into his office and closed the door. "We have a problem," he said. My chest tightened. "There's an audit coming," he continued calmly. "And I need you to take responsibility for some inconsistencies." I stared at him. "Inconsistencies I didn't create." He smiled. "You worked on the files. Your name is on them." "I didn't change the numbers," I said. "I know," he replied. "But they don't." That was the moment I understood fully. He wasn't just cruel. He was planning to destroy me to save himself. I walked out of his office in a daze. My hands shook so badly I had to lock myself in the bathroom. I stared at my reflection, barely recognizing the person looking back. I had two choices: stay silent and let him ruin my life, or tell the truth, and risk everything. That night, I didn't open Netflix. I didn't distract myself. I opened my email archive, and I started saving everything, every forwarded message, every attachment, every timestamp, every contradiction. I didn't know yet that one email would end his career, but I knew this. I was done being afraid. By Monday morning, my boss knew something was wrong. I hadn't replied to his late night emails. I hadn't shown up early like I always did. And the files he needed me to clean up were no longer sitting on my desk. At 9:07 a.m., my phone rang. "Come to my office," Richard said. His voice was calm, but too calm. "Now." I walked down the hallway slowly, feeling every step in my chest. This was the moment. The one I had been dreading and preparing for at the same time. When I opened his office door, he didn't offer a smile. "You didn't answer my messages," he said. "I was busy," I replied. "With what?" he asked, leaning back in his chair. I met his eyes. "Making sure my work is accurate." For a second, something flickered across his face. Annoyance. Suspicion. Fear. Then it vanished. "You know the audit team is arriving this week," he said. "We need to be aligned." Aligned. That was his word for lying together. "I agree," I said carefully. "We should be aligned with the truth." His jaw tightened. "Careful," he said quietly. "You're not in a position to play moral games." That sentence confirmed everything. He already knew I was a threat. "I just want to do my job," I said. He stood up slowly and walked around his desk until he was standing too close. "Your job," he said, "is to protect this department. And that means protecting me." I nodded. Understood. I left his office with my heart racing, but my mind clear. He thought I was still under control. He thought fear would work like it always had. What he didn't know was that I had already copied everything. That afternoon, the first domino fell. An email arrived from compliance requesting clarification on several financial entries. Richard forwarded it to me immediately with one line: "Handle this." I stared at the screen, "Hand steady now." This was exactly how it always started. He stayed invisible. I responded. If it went wrong, my name would be attached. This time, I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded the email to my personal account. Then I opened my folder. The one I had built quietly over months. Screenshots. Attachments. Versions. Of documents before and after they were adjusted. Emails. Where Richard instructed changes. Verbally but followed up with vague written approval. I wasn't emotional anymore. I was precise. By the end of the day, Richard came to my desk himself. "Why haven't you replied?" he asked. "I'm still reviewing," I said. "You don't have time to review," he snapped. "They're expecting answers." "I want to be accurate," I said calmly. He stared at me for a long moment. "You're acting strange." "So are you," I replied before I could stop myself. His face hardened. "Watch your tone." That night, I barely slept. Not because I was scared, but because I knew what I had to do next. I just hadn't admitted it yet. The next morning, HR called me and two people sat across from me. One of them I recognized from previous investigations that had gone nowhere. "We've received concerns about data handling in your department," one of them said. I nodded. "That doesn't surprise me." They exchanged glances. "Can you explain your role in the quarterly reports?" The other asked. "I can," I said. "And I can also explain who instructed the changes, when, and why." The room went quiet. "Are you saying your manager directed you to alter data?" The first one asked. "Yes," I said. "And I have records." Their posture changed instantly. "What kind of records?" They asked. "Emails," I said. "Attachments. Timelines. Everything." They asked me to forward them. I didn't. "Not yet," I said. They frowned. "Why not?" "Because once I send them," I said calmly, "there's no going back. And I want to make sure they go to the right people." That was the moment they realized I wasn't bluffing. They ended the meeting quickly, saying they needed time. By the time I got back to my desk, Richard was waiting. "What did HR want?" he asked. "Same things they always want," I said. "Clarity." His eyes narrowed. "Did you give it to them?" "Not yet." That night, he sent me 7 emails. Each one more aggressive than the last. Telling me to cooperate. Warning me about consequences. Reminding me of my position. I didn't reply to any of them. Instead, I drafted one email of my own. I didn't send it yet. I just wrote it. I rewrote it. I deleted sentences. Added others. Every word mattered. Not dramatic. Not emotional. Just undeniable. 6 sentences. That was all it took. The next morning, I CC'd the audit team, compliance, HR leadership, and legal. I attached the files, and I hit send. For the first time in 2 years, my hands didn't shake. Within 30 minutes, Richard's door was closed. Within an hour, he stopped replying to emails. By lunch, legal was on site. No one said his name out loud, but everyone felt it. The shift. The silence. The sudden absence of his authority. At 3:18 p.m., HR asked me to pack up my things and go home for the day. "Am I being suspended?" I asked. "No," they said quickly. "You're being protected." That word hit me harder than anything else. Protected. The next day, Richard didn't come in. The day after that, his calendar was wiped. By Friday, his company profile was gone. No goodbye email. No explanation. No farewell meeting, just erased. On Monday morning, I was asked to meet with senior leadership. They thanked me, they apologized, they told me the investigation confirmed everything. Richard had resigned, effective immediately. I walked out of the building that day feeling lighter than I had in years. Not because I won, but because I didn't lose myself trying to survive under him. But the story wasn't over yet, because Richard wasn't done, and neither was the fallout. By the time Richard's resignation became official, everyone at the office already knew why. They just pretended they didn't. No announcement was made. No meeting was called. His name was quietly removed from systems, his office cleaned out after hours. The company acted like he had never existed. But the tension he left behind stayed in the air. thick and uncomfortable. People started looking at me differently, not with admiration, with caution. Some avoided eye contact. Some suddenly became very friendly. A few whispered when I passed by. I realized then that exposing someone powerful doesn't make you popular. It makes you dangerous. 2 days after Richard left, legal asked to meet with me again. This time, it wasn't just questions. They told me how deep it went, the kickbacks, the altered forecasts, the pressure on junior staff, the vendors who paid for favors. Richard hadn't just been protecting himself. He had been building a system where fear did the work for him. They thanked me again. Offered counseling. Offered reassurance. Promised cultural change. I nodded, listened, said the right things, but inside, I felt empty. For 2 years, my life had been shaped around surviving him. And now that he was gone, I didn't know who I was without that constant pressure. That night, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I answered. It was Richard. "I hope you're happy," he said. His voice was calm, but stripped of confidence. "I didn't do this to be happy," I replied. "I did it because you were going to ruin me." He laughed quietly. "You think this is over?" "Yes," I said. "It is." "No," he said. "It's just different now." I didn't respond. "You know," he continued, "you could have stayed quiet. You would have been fine." "No," I said. "I wouldn't." There was silence on the line. Then his tone shifted. Bitter. Sharp. "You think you won?" He asked. "I think the truth won," I said. "And that scares you." He hung up, for the first time since this started. My hands shook, not because I regretted it, but because I realized something important. People like Richard don't disappear quietly, they just lose the stage. The following week, rumors started circulating. Anonymous posts. LinkedIn comments. Subtle digs suggesting I was difficult, unstable, not a team player. I recognized his fingerprints immediately, but this time, I didn't panic, because I wasn't alone anymore. Leadership shut it down fast. Legal sent warnings. IT traced activity. The company had already decided who they believed, and it wasn't him. One afternoon, Maria, the coworker who had been fired months earlier, reached out to me. She had heard what happened. "Thank you," she said. "I thought I was crazy." "You weren't," I replied. "You were just early." That message meant more to me than any corporate apology. A month later, Richard's name appeared in the news. Not headlines. Just a quiet industry piece. Former executive under investigation. No details. No drama, but everyone who mattered understood his career was over, not because of one email, but because that email made it impossible for the truth to stay buried. As for me, things changed. I was offered a promotion. I declined it. I was offered a bonus. I accepted it, then donated part of it. I was asked to mentor new hires. I said yes, because I didn't want to become the kind of person who survives abuse and then pretends it never happens again. Months later, on my last day at that company, I stood in the empty hallway where I used to walk with fear in my chest. The same hallway where Richard once waited outside HR offices, confident he owned everything. He never did. He just convinced people he did. I left for a new role at a different company. Different culture. Different leadership. On my first day, my new manager told me something simple: "If something feels wrong here, say it. We listen." I almost laughed. On my drive home that evening, I thought about that 6-sentence email. How small it was. How powerful it became. People think revenge has to be loud. Dramatic. Cruel, sometimes. It's just truth placed in the right hands. I didn't ruin Richard's career. He did. I just stopped protecting him, and if there's one thing I learned from all of this, it's this: silence protects the powerful, truth protects the rest of us. If you find this story good, please like and subscribe our channel. It's free for you but helps us a lot to keep sharing real stories like this.